Good afternoon, Dan. His information starts on page 43 in the packet.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the council. Is Lauren in council chambers?
He's coming in now.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Jim, do you have an easel for him to put his drawings on? Okay. Good afternoon, gentlemen. We have several members on Zoom, and it's my understanding Tony Incachella is unable to attend today, so Cheney Bell is present in the Zoom. So go ahead.
Hello, my name is Lauren Frazier, and I'm with TD&H Engineering, and I've been working on the Medicine Tree site. With me today is Trevor Iman with WGM Group. They are doing the actual highway design and road design for the Connor South project, and we brought a couple of kind of pictures of the highway to help. We sent the stuff electronically. I don't know if you need that, and I also sent electronically kind of my notes from a meeting that we had on site with Tony and member Charlo, and so I don't know if you guys need copies of these. I brought some if you'd like them.
They're in our packet.
They're in your packet.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And so discussion today is I wanted to go over the notes that I had to make sure that I'm giving our designers kind of the right direction. And I guess the role that I've been asked to do in this is to kind of act as a liaison. I was involved in 2003 in the original agreement that we have copies of here for the Medicine Tree site and design. I was with the highway department back then. Since then, I've retired, and anyway, they brought me back to work on it again. And so my job is to kind of make sure that things are done right, things are done the way that we want them to go. And anyway, I just kind of open it up for questions, and if you guys have any questions about the project, like I said, Mr. Ryman can certainly answer those.
Okay. Martin, did you want to present anything from your attendance at that field trip?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Lauren, nice to see you again, and nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this project, you know, I didn't fully understand what I was going down for on the meeting. I thought it was actually a larger kind of public comment meeting, but it was nice that it was just Tony and Kashola, myself, and Lauren, and we really got to talk about the history of the place as far as what's transpired over the last 20 years since the top of it. Well, since it started dying, and then once the top fell off. You know, this is, if you've been down there, it's a pretty dangerous site when you get a big group of people there. And so these changes are really, unfortunately, a little long overdue. But I appreciate Lauren, you know, coming in and kind of revitalizing this. And I would hope that we can get this done as quickly as possible. And I think, not to speak for Tony, but, you know, I think that we all hope that it could get done sooner than later. You know, the ice melt and everything that they put on the highways there is affecting and deteriorating the tree and that site. And a lot of people still feel that site, even though we have a new tree, is still the significant place. And so in order to protect that, you know, the designs that he has today, I looked them over again, and it's, you know, basically what Tony and he talked about as far as, you know, protection, parking, and I'm sure he'll get into all that. But yeah, it was just a really productive meeting, and you know, funny how things kind of, yeah, just work out where he's been gone for a lot of years, but now he's back and wants to get this going and hopefully get it done sooner than later. So thank you.
Do you want to go through the drawings and your notes just for our public to see? We have some followers on Zoom.
Sure. The first picture that I have is, yeah, the one that's on the screen there is the concepts that we came up with quite a few years ago. And I have a couple of questions regarding that, but the one is that we have, I guess we'll just kind of go through it. There's a privacy wall that we showed there, kind of a separation from the highway, help cut down on some of the noise, and then some of the bystanders, like I said, just a privacy wall. We're trying to squeeze in between there and the river with the roadway. One of the things that we had on there is that we wanted to maintain kind of that natural compacted ground, and there is kind of a flat spot around the tree, and there's kind of a little rock wall that's there. And one of the things that we had while we were out there talking about was trying to build some kind of a ramp for access to get there. And my question is that rock wall that's stacked around there, do we want to keep that wall visible, or can we put material up against it to kind of get up on that flat spot? Just, we're kind of getting down to now we're into the fine details of design, and I was just wondering about the importance of that stacked rock wall that's kind of around the tree.
Martin?
I think if it came between, and I guess I would hope that Cheney would chime in as well. If it's between safety and like a handicap ramp and those stones that were put in, I mean, I don't know the history of the retaining wall, but I'm assuming it was just something after the fact to protect You know, unless Tony or Cheney have more, or anyone else here has the significance of those, I would think accessibility would be really important for our membership. So thank you.
Cheney, did you have any input on this?
Yeah, thank you. When I visited with Tony about this, he thought that that was going to come out, that concrete wall was going to come out, and that it would be leveled off, and that area would be made a little easier to walk up around where the tree is. That's kind of what I got from him when I visited with Tony. So
this is Trevor. So that in order to maintain the integrity of the site, we'd prefer not to remove that rock if possible. So we were just thinking if we could fill against it to facilitate that ADA access or the access without removing it. I know that that's a sensitive site, and if we can just fill up along it, that'd be better for us. I think it'd probably be better for your site as well.
This is Lauren again. Is there any further discussion or questions on this picture? I could go to the next one in my notes.
Well, I just have a comment. I really like that privacy wall because the last time I was there was the spring equinox, and it was so loud. I mean, the traffic, there's a lot of traffic on that road, and it's just really difficult to do what you go there to do. It is. So I appreciate that privacy wall. But you can go to the next slide. I don't see any more. Go ahead, Martin.
And yeah, I guess I appreciate you bringing up not removing that, because the more I think about it, you know, as a kid, I remember burying things in that little area right around the tree. And so I think if you pulled those rocks out, it would be disturbing some offerings. So yeah, I think anything packed up around it or whatever, that, yeah, like Cheney said, that'd be great. So.
Okay, thank you. The next picture is a diagram of a kind of a concept that we had, allowing a parking area, turnaround area. And part of my notes on there is when we were there, Tony kind of put out some limits. He said there was a sign that we could, you know, run the privacy wall to, and then he was asking from this picture that we continue the length of that privacy kind of downstream a little bit there to just give it a little more of a privacy section. And we were looking at that about where we had that turnout. And then we mentioned access down for the approach off the highway, whether or not you would want a gate there to kind of keep it private. That was one of the discussions we had. And if we did have a gate, we'd want a post or something that you could tie the gate to keep it open. But those are, like I said, those are all kind of some of those details that we'll be working on.
So it looks like you're adding a guardrail on the tree side of the road where there isn't one now?
Yes, there will be a guardrail actually on both sides of the road. In the typical section, the previous graphic, you can see even 20 years ago, they anticipated having guardrail on both sides of the road, but this parking area would be protected using guardrail.
I think my remembrance of that from years ago was that it helped serve as something to try and keep kids in, keep some separation between the traffic and people that were walking and gathering in that area.
So then the access point would be where you actually go into the other gated area where our property is?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
that would be the access to your property.
Okay. Questions? So did you have a question about the gate or no? That was just for information.
The question was is whether you would like a gate there or not. That was kind of a suggestion that we had just to keep the area from becoming a parking area or recreational area. And it was something we talked about it quite a while ago. We suggested an access gate. That'll show up on the next exhibit that I had from years ago, but
Go ahead, Cheney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wasn't sure if you could see me. Just thinking about that gate, you know, there are people that, I don't know if that would be locked or how that would work, but, you know, a lot of people do travel down there on their own. And so that, I think that's something we would want to look at further. I know people just traveling through there, they'll stop there and, you know, say some prayers, and people make their own trips, not just when the culture committee goes, they bring their families. And so I think it's something I think we would need to visit more about if we would want to lock the gate. Thank you.
You guys weren't talking about a lock gate, were you?
It could be a locked gate. I know when we had the public open house about a month and a half ago in Darby, there was someone from that fishes a lot down there, and they felt like, oh, this would be a great location. Maybe we could park our boat or our boat and truck and trailer. So it depends on your guys' opinion of what you want that space used for. Maybe it's not locked. Maybe it's part of a maintenance agreement that you could identify whether it's locked or not. I know that when we discussed it with the CSKT, is it the highways group, on the suggestion was that a gate be installed, and if it becomes an issue, it could be managed, but at least the gate would exist at that point. So it could be a gate that has a locking mechanism, or it could be a gate that's just shut, and the members could utilize it as necessary without an actual lock on it. So.
Yeah, I think, you know, there are a lot of people that just go, you know, just out of the blue. Like the time I went there, it was just, oh yeah, I think I'll go to the medicine tree today, you know, and so I wouldn't have time to access a key or whatever. So I think that could be solved with signage. If we just said, you know, it's for access to the medicine tree, it's not for recreationists or whatever to park their boats. I think we could do some kind of a signage that would deter those. Mike?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Does your design also include parking outside of that gate, doesn't it?
So our design does not specifically address parking exterior to this site because it would be off of the highway right away and not associated with this project. I believe there was discussion of off-site parking maybe at the home there or at the other property. I think that was the last I'd heard about that.
Martin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And kind of to further answer that, Mike, the idea with the parking in front there along the highway was specifically for elders and people with mobility issues. And then everyone else parks down in the property that for the big gatherings. So yeah, there's definitely ample parking on that property for, you know, others that don't have the mobility issues.
Okay, and then the last part of that handout was just visual of the area and, you know, possible kind of vision of what it would look like. From longer ago than I'd like to admit, but I guess time goes. With that, that's kind of the questions that we had. I just wanted you guys to be aware of our progress and keep communicating. Martin? We'll get it done.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Lauren. So what are we looking at for a timeline on kind of completion? Is that I didn't see? If I missed it in the packet, I apologize.
I have to defer to Trevor on that. He's been working with MDT on the design.
So the project is currently unfunded within the state transportation program, when meaning it's beyond their 5-year horizon for planning. They anticipate, provided federal funding maintains, that it would be sometime in the 5 to 10 year range for construction. At this point, you know, we're in very preliminary design. We're working towards getting kind of the 30% design completed and then moving on to right-of-way acquisition. I think there's over 100 parcels of land along this property or along this project, being a 7-mile long project along the river, that land would potentially need to be acquired from, which can be a longer process also.
So it's not in the 5 to 10 year state highway plan? Is that what you said?
It's not currently funded in the 5-year horizon.
Mike.
What is the cost of this project?
We don't have a current estimate with today's prices, just seeing the way they've changed in the last few months, but depending on the number of retaining walls and the impact to the adjacent properties that we're willing to accept, or I guess that it is willing to be accepted, we anticipate it between $20 and $30 million for 7 miles of roadway.
Martin?
So with, I guess this is a very hypothetical question. Would this specific part of the project be able to be done without all of the other acquisition of right-of-ways, or are there right-of-ways that need to be acquired for this particular, just this little, I'm not talking about the entire project, just this section?
That's a difficult question to answer. We're really at preliminary design, but given how we have to shift the roadway, we can't do just, you know, the 500 feet or so associated with the medicine tree. We would have to extend that project. Depending on funding availability, the project may in the future be split into smaller segments to be a fundable project within a time frame that's reasonable. So I wouldn't say that, no, it's impossible, but it wouldn't be specifically the small segment directly adjacent to the medicine tree.
Yeah, that is a very narrow road. So. Any other comments? Cheney, did you have anything else?
Say, you know, thank you, Lemlumch, you know, for taking this into consideration, this area. I know there were people out there that really hoped that when this tree died that we would move out of there. But when we talk about something sacred, sacredness doesn't come from just a thing. It comes from a lot of different things, and a lot of times things we can't see. And so I'm just thankful that, you know, that we're able to protect this site. So Lemlumch.
Carol?
Yeah, I still remember the morning that we heard that it had fell and that there seemed to be like almost a rush by Marcia Pablo and others, you know, to go down and secure the site and things like that. But yeah, it was quite a day when that happened.
Okay. I remember that day. I was working at the Department of Transportation then. If we don't have any further discussion on the Medicine Tree or the Connor North and South project, I would like to state that I've been selected by the governor to be the chair of the Transportation Commission. So if you have some transportation issues, feel free to contact me for the commission and things like that. Your District 1 commissioner's name is Tammy Fisher. She's in Kalispell, but I thought while I was here, I was going to state that I'm on the commission, so I have a little say in what goes on, not not a lot. I'm one of 5 votes.
Lynn?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the council. And Lauren, thank you. And thank you for coming in this morning on this project. Lauren, that's good news. Governor picked a good man for the job. As council may or may not know, I worked with Lauren in the past on the Highway 93 project, and we had a lot of good meetings, a lot of contentious meetings, and I remember those. So, but Lauren, when you do take the chairmanship of the committee, yes, we would like to schedule a time with you as soon as possible to address some of the flaws that we talked about on Highway 93 here that were overlooked during design, and now we're concerned that we're this far along, and I think it was a year and a half ago when MDOT came in and we mentioned that we want to continue to work with them on addressing these design flaws and trying to get something going. So we appreciate you letting us know about the chairmanship of the committee, and we wish you luck there and look forward to working with you. So thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to echo that. You know, you've said you've been involved in this project since '03.
Actually, 2000.
Since the year 2000, so 2 decades.
It's 2 decades.
So I guess I feel like we do have a friend in the commission now, and yeah, we will reach out to you. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, did you have anything in closing?
Nothing particular, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Safe travels. Okay, next up we have Tom McDonald and Whisper Means with the SKQ submittals approval.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. I think we're on page 49. Last month I brought in the draft 2020 annual work plan and report and our 2022 work plan for the Kerr Dam or SKQ dam mitigation. That's required to be submitted to FERC and Department of Interior by the last week of June 25th of each year per the license. We go through an extensive process to put together the annual report. It's one of the largest documents that I think the tribes produce as a requirement of that license and DOI's requirements. So it's a pretty exhaustive document going over all the activity each year that we do to fulfill those mitigation requirements, the SKQ dam. And then likewise, the next year out work plan and budget is part of that submittal. Each year we generate that with staff, seek tribal legal review. And then there's also in the license a required consultation group, which consists of the Montana Fish, Life and Parks, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the dam operator, in this case, Energy Keepers Incorporated, and our own staff. And that consultation, along with tribal council, has already occurred. So we're at the point to have council consider adopting the submittal as a final. In the time frame between I gave you the draft and today, we did identify one correction for a table in the 2022 work plan. It was a mislabel in the tables. We corrected that. And then also we adjusted some of the line items for salaries due to your adoption of the new ordinance 69D, excuse me, with merit increases and the salary adjustments that may occur each year based on wage grades assessments. So there is a slight change in the overall budget. Other than that, it's the exact same document you had for you a month ago. And so I would, if there was any questions related to the report or anything related to the budget, I would hope that between myself, Les Everett, and Whisper Camel Means, we'd be able to address those for you. I would like to mention right now, though, in relationship to this document, anytime there's any problems associated with these mitigation lands, we identify and report it in the document and reveal what's going on and try to address that situation. The fire that was caused by Montana Rail Link early this spring along Highway 200 near what we call the sinkholes burned up property that we purchased for mitigation, for SKQ dam mitigation. So it's a pretty big impact on a piece of habitat along the river riparian upland and riparian habitat, wetland habitat that we purchased, we call in actually really pristine condition. So it didn't require restoration on it. Some of the habitat that we bought under the license was in marginal conditions or it needed to be fixed up. So we had an acquisition fund to create that habitat, the replacement habitat that was lost because of the dam. And then we also had a restoration fund to fix it up over time to get it functioning during the license period. That piece of property, the J. Weed Ranch, in the sinkhole area down by the river, the lower bench, wasn't identified as needing any restoration. Now, consequently, because of that negligent fire by Montana Rail Link, it is not functioning as it was in providing the habitat credits, nor is there any additional restoration funding to do it. So we're currently working with our BI superintendent, along with Tribal Forestry and Lands, to add, if possible, that additional layer of why we bought that land to begin with, to restore it to wildlife habitat. So that's a consideration. That'll be identified and put in next year's report. And if there's any additional funding that comes because of that from the insurance company in Montana Rail Link, we'll identify that and we'll need to bring that forward into the restoration fund under this SKQ funding just like we do with the Montana or the native fish keepers in our lake trout reduction program. So that's something coming up. Just wanted to make sure I brought that up before I forgot about it. We're working on it actually this week, and we'll be working with Shana and the BI solicitors in Portland to figure that out as best we can. Other than that, if there was any questions, that would basically be it for the Kerr submittals.
Questions from council, comments? Charmel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make a remark about the report. Tom, this program is just really phenomenal, and I always appreciate what you're doing with these funds and all of the objectives that you're accomplishing annually. It's just very pleasing, and you know, you've just done a great job, your whole team there, continually. Thank you.
Thank you, Charmel. Anyone else? Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the annual submittals. Motion by Mike, second by Charmel. All those in favor? I'm sorry, Fred, I didn't see your vote. Motion carries unanimous.
Madam Chair, I appreciate that comment from Councilor Representative Gillen. It is a very dedicated staff, very professional staff that we've been able to hire and provide this input. It's one of the, you know, mitigation is not a good thing to do. It's not like you want to be able to do things without having to mitigate for it. You can live in balance and be able to do things. But when you do have to have mitigation, the one side benefit I would say along with having a professional program to deal with this specific mitigation is that it's built capacity for the tribes, that we've been able to expand and provide additional resources through this professional staff to expand and create a very outstanding program and other staff that do on other projects. So I appreciate those comments, and I really appreciate the staff that work with me, all the colleagues that work on it. So it's a fantastic program, and it's done some really cool things, not only between this and BPA, bringing forward, you know, nearly 30,000 acres of land to tribal ownership, and purchasing a lot of critical habitat before what's going on before us today. This run on land, this everybody moving here and driving up prices. I'm sure glad we were able to purchase places like this weed ranch before today, because it probably would have been untouchable for us today with the funding that we had. So they were very timely on these acquisitions. I'd like to give a brief bison range update, if I may. Primarily related to staffing. I just want to give you we have picked up some more additional staff. For the bison range coordinator, we hired Leonard Gray. He started last Tuesday. Then we also picked up another game warden specifically for the bison range. Isaiah Asensio will be performing that task. We'll be getting him into training as soon as possible, probably this winter, for his game warden training. We did hire the security technology specialist, Antoine Paul. That's a unique position, and hopefully it'll help us quite a bit. And then additionally, we hired the lead maintenance worker, and that is Willie Stevens. We will be selecting shortly the maintenance foreman, the additional maintenance workers, and then we're still hoping to, as soon as possible, finalize the rest of the visitor center staffing beyond the emergency hires that we did to get us going from Mother's Day weekend on. and also the information education staff beyond the emergency hires that we have in that program. Along with that, we still are closing and doing the screening on a couple of the wildlife positions. We have a unique opportunity out there separate from this issue. You're all well of the shop, replacement shop. They've begun that construction. Amy Lisk had a conversation briefly with the foreman out there talking about the dismantling of the old shop that was condemned due to some structural I-beam issues on the corner. So he had mentioned the possibility that that shop could remain in place if we wanted to take it as is. They wouldn't tear it down. They were going to use very little of it actually in the new building. They were going to salvage it for future use in other projects and other locations. But he believes it behooves them to actually not do that. So there may be an opportunity for us to either just take it off their hands as is, and we can assess it for continued use of just cold storage, since there will be a new maintenance shop that would house personnel and those other duties. Or we might be able to pick it up for a very low amount of cost. So I wanted to bring that up for council to think about. I would recommend, if there was an opportunity, that we grab a hold of that shop, because we have a lot of other equipment in our division that would benefit from having a roof over it in that setting at the Bison Range. So if at all possible, I would love to be able to capture that building and have double that square footage for shop and storage. Just want to bring it up. Well, if council's interested in that, we can pursue it. We haven't had any conversations with the contractor yet, nor have we had any conversations with the rest of the team and tribal admin. But we certainly are willing to pursue that if it's a council consensus to look into it.
Any comments?
Chair.
Go ahead, Martin.
I think that we should at least try, and if it doesn't, I mean, part of me thinks that we kind of already possess it, so wouldn't it be our call?
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, you know that what Martin says is absolutely correct. When you think about it, it's just in the contract that the service had with the building contractor. They called for the total removal of that building, and the contractor, in his bidding of it, thought they were going to recycle a lot of the parts of that building. It's turned out, as you do that kind of analysis, I'm not sure exactly how they came up with that thought process, but typically labor kills you when you try to do something like that. When you're tearing something down and putting it back up, sometimes it's just more efficient to put up something new, not try to recycle it, especially when you're talking about metal. Wood products are a little bit different, have a different value, but they're not even going to reuse the big garage doors on this, according to what Ms. Lisk told me. So we did convince him in the contract with the service to leave the concrete slab in place. So we'd use it as a parking location. So we'd have that solid footing for heavy equipment to be stored upon it. So if we could get the core of the building and a roof, that would be fantastic for us. Get it for free would even be more fantastic.
Free is good.
One last update. I know that many of the signs are done, and so we'll be coordinating with the service staff and our sign contractor to get some of those installed as soon as possible. That would be like the main sign on the rock entrance where the gate is. a few more signs. Some of the signs, I think we mentioned before on the field trips, are the service signs are going to save. Some of them will go into their storage for museum exhibits in the future, or recycled to the best of their ability. So we'll work through a strategy to make sure we get those signs up in a timely fashion between now and, well, 1st of July, hopefully. The visitor center work is moving ahead. One problem is, we've talked about this in the past, they had a contractor on board to fix a leaky roof at the visitor center. Their contractor they had originally selected backed out of it. They're awarded a second contract to another bidder. That has yet to start. But of course, this last week, wet weather that we had, the leak showed its ugly face again. And so there's still some damage occurring. They're gonna try to expedite that second contractor to get working on that roof. It's a membrane layer that'll install on that flat roof that'll provide a 20-year lifespan on the new roof. And they will fix a little bit of the structural damage that's occurred for the last 10 years on the old roof. But right now, that's a current situation. We had hoped that the roof would have been done by now. The service did also. It was unfortunate the contractor they originally selected backed out. So that's still going to be going on, and we hope to expedite it along with the shop construction. That's all I have for Bison Range update.
Mike?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tom, is the old shop stable now?
Well, if you remember, what happened was the primary spots where they had the frost heave occurring from lack of drainage around that building when they constructed it occurred on the northern corner of the building, and that's where they had the most movement. And that's where they diagnosed a slight twisting of those major I-beams that support the north end of the roof structure. That's when they decided that the whole foundation might be in jeopardy, that their inadequacy of drainage in that one footing could be asymptomatic that could spread through every one of those footings. They did come in immediately and try to provide a remedy. That being, they provided storm drain spouts for the roof runoff and tried to discharge it well away from the foundation. A little bit too late. The damage had already occurred on one corner of the building. But that's certainly a very preventative action to keep anything from the future from occurring. So we'd hope that would be the case. Additionally, landscaping around the building to keep the parking lot drainage away from the foundation, that hadn't really occurred either. And so they were working on, or they did some of that too. So improvements that should have been done with the initial construction of the building have been done. Thinking they might be able to keep it, but they just eventually determined that let's build a whole new shop in a different location.
Any other questions? Tom, I missed who the fish and game officer was.
Isaiah Asensio.
Thank you.
We stole him away from Lake County sanitary landfill. He was running heavy equipment there. He's worked for our wildland rec program in the past. Grew up in Pablo, Ronan. His dad's a tribal policeman. Great person, great catch for us. Be a solid worker in the future. Very dedicated individual.
Charmel?
The part I missed, Madam Chair, Tom, was the position Antone Paul filled.
That's the security technology position. It's basically an IT site manager along with web. We're trying to do a web-based manager so that we, rather than using contractors that we've been doing in the past, we want to, in relying somewhat on our current IT program department, we wanted to basically create a position that would be a website manager, help us create new website and content, be able to enhance our security system cameras on the grounds and throughout the whole range, and provide additional technology applications, help us with that. So we have web-based, a lot more web-based information. Also bringing forward the ability to pay remotely, just expand our whole fee system through basically using smart devices and prepaying and all those type of actions, really bringing things into the current situation around the country. So it's, he was working at CSKT College, teaching there, had worked for our IT program in the past, has some great, great base, a base of solid technical experience and knowledge. And then we'll continue to work with him on content. But it's kind of hard to find that person that has that combination of being a great writer, being a savvy technology wizard, geek, and putting it all in one person is unique, rather than using a consulting firm that has all those staff persons or multiple consultants. So we're hoping that this position will be something fantastic. And David Rockwell, our current consulting that helps consultant that helps us do this kind of work, is going to be on board for a while to help train Antoine and bring that side of content creation into the position.
That's fantastic. Thanks and congratulations to all the new hires.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Bing?
Hey, Madam Chair. Say, Tom, what kind of inspections and whatnot have you guys came up with the fences and other maintenance work that you have to do down there?
The current reports that we have from the inventories that the consultant that we have that information. We will put together, now that we started hiring our own maintenance staff, we'll be putting together a project list to confirm the data that was generated and set forward a real stringent work plan to start with the exterior fences and work our way in. The interior fences that I'm really interested in are the ones that we would utilize for moving wildlife from one area of the bison range to another, so we can do primarily weed treatment. That's the main tool I see for the interior fences. There's a little bit of a benefit with some of the interior fences to keep people out of the day use area, or keep wildlife out of the day use area where there's concentrated people. But primarily the tool for me is not range rotation, it's just weed treatment. So we'll assess that and work forward on that.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Okay, thank you for that update.
Thank you.
Does council need a break before we have our hemp discussion? Okay, we'll take 5. Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. Next up is Shane and Company on a hemp discussion.
Thank you, Chairwoman Fiant. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Well, hopefully you guys will be happy with us. We want to keep this short and sweet today for all of you. But you know, we wanted to bring the hemp discussion back for council to think about some more. And there are really two things happening here. We have the regulatory aspect of hemp on the Flathead Reservation, and then we have or have had an ongoing discussion about pursuing hemp in an economic in any economic fashion. So we really have two different directions, but one obviously impacts the other, and regulation would obviously impact what we do in the economic sphere. So really what we wanted to bring to you all today and for you to think about is, you know, we know that we can regulate hemp on the reservation. We've had conversations with the Department of Ag. You know, one of the things to consider for council is that there is, I think, 7 hemp farmers on the reservation. And we would basically be tasked with licensing, regulating, and mostly that would include testing. And so there is a framework for that with the feds. There are other tribes doing that. We know that Blackfeet, Fort Belknap, Rocky Boy, and Nez Perce are all doing it. And so really at this juncture, it's just a matter of, you know, does the council want to regulate the hemp industry? And if so, we can work with the feds on that front to kind of put the pieces together to do that. You know, one of the things to keep in mind is that it will obviously cost money, and it's not something that would really be, regulation isn't really a money-making business. It's more of the regulation and the tribes exercising our sovereignty and exercising that regulatory framework. And so, you know, we would have to have the infrastructure to put in place to do testing, although we could work with the DEA lab locally to do testing. And we could also look into outsourcing testing with private labs as well if we wanted to do that. Of course, that would all come with, you know, the costs and fees of regulating those particular individuals on the reservation. Whether we do it or not, it looks like the feds said that they would keep us apprised of who is doing it on the reservation, and we would they would continue to communicate with us on that front. So really at this point, you know, it just depends on whether or not the council wants to move forward further and have us look into it as far as the regulatory piece. And if you all do, we could reach out to other tribes. We could look into what those costs and the structures are with other tribes such as Blackfeet, Belknap, Rocky Boy, and Nez Perce. So we just wanted to kind of let you know that, you know, it's possible, that it would obviously take some financial responsibilities and staffing responsibilities. And it really becomes a policy decision whether or not council wants to do it. But if council is still interested in moving forward, we could go and look into that with those other tribes and bring that information back to all of you for further consideration. So that's where we're at right now, and we'll take direction from all of you. And I guess if Dan or Mike wanted to chime in, they could as well, if that's okay, Chairwoman Fiant.
Charmel has a comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Shane. I guess it seems like I'm probably going to ask a question that is kind of silly, but with regard to the regulations on hemp, if we were to develop or adopt regulations, I'm assuming it'd be the same as any other product we're talking about, that our regulatory oversight is limited then to tribal trust, tribal fee, and then individual trust properties within the reservation, or is that correct? And then the existing growers on the reservation would fall under some other regulatory body, the state's body, is that correct?
I can touch on that, Shane, if you'd like. So when we spoke with the USDA last Monday, Shane, Mike, and I, they referred us to the new hemp rule that came out from the federal government in March of 2021. It's just over 100 pages long, the final rule. But in the final rule, under the 2018 Farm Bill, they essentially compare hemp regulations to the authority like tribes would have under the Clean Water Act or Clean Air Act. And thus, if the tribes wanted to exercise its regulatory authority for hemp, it would include all properties within the reservation boundaries, trust or fee status. So in the meantime, if the tribes down the road decide that they don't want to get into hemp regulation, the USDA would continue to do that on the reservation for both fee simple and trust properties. And as Shane alluded to, there's currently 7 licenses on the reservation. So any new applications until the tribes, if and when the tribes decide to get into the regulatory scheme, new licenses will be under the USDA. And the USDA, as Shane alluded to, agreed to keep the tribes informed of who these growers are and where their farms are located. And so they seemed really open about keeping the open lines of communications with the tribes moving forward, whether or not the tribes decide to get into regulating hemp.
Go ahead, Charmel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dan, I have to admit I haven't looked at that Farm Bill language in quite a while, and I don't remember what sort of fee structure might go into like charging the growers to fund regulation. Can you tell me a little about that?
Councilwoman Gillen, I briefly looked at different schematics of the different tribes that Shane spoke of earlier, and each tribe seemed to have a different price or schedule as far as their licensing went. So that's probably some research that we'd have to do and look into for the council if they'd like this team to look into that further. But just from the ones that I briefly looked at, each tribe kind of had a different schedule as far as what they were going to charge for licenses and other costs like that. So it varies by the tribes, just from the 4 tribes that Shane mentioned.
Other comments? So I guess from my perspective, when we heard from a local hemp farmer a few years ago, he talked about, what he was doing, and he came to the tribe first, as a FYI, not asking for permission, but, letting us know. And we looked into it then. And, I don't think you can put a price on asserting your sovereignty. So that's why I was interested in it back then. And I think, while it may not bring economic benefits to the tribe as a whole, I think there's individual tribal members that could prosper, their individual economic health. If they got 5, 10, 20 acres. So I'm interested in pursuing it. I think there's a lot of potential out there with, maybe not processing it to the final product, but some of the people that I've heard of that grow it, they just sell it, and then people make what they make out of it, whether it's oil or, building materials. That's what I'm interested in it for, is the actual building materials. When you look at the price of lumber and all that stuff today, yeah. And I know that what little research I've done, hemp kind of repairs the land as well. So, Carol, Martin, did you guys have something? No? Anyone else?
So Chairwoman Fient, at this juncture, we can really, go as far as you all would like us to. If you would like us to start looking into just, the regulatory framework, to look into putting something together, we can do that. If you all would like us to look into, what the other tribes have done and, some of those other questions on costs and stuff, we can do that. But certainly that is, something for you all to make a decision on whether, I think you hit the nail on the head as far as, regulations and sovereignty, or, the financial aspects of it and that sort of thing. And, that really just boils down to what you all would like us to do at this juncture. So we're glad to go and start working on this as, in any context or as structure as you would all would like.
Martin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think what I would like would be also kind of some idea on what, if we were going to get into any kind of extraction of like CBD or any of the other medicinal things, what that looks like as far as not necessarily the production, but more the kind of breaking it down and extracting the stuff. So Velda, if that's something that you've already looked into or whatever, if I could get that report, that'd be great.
Yeah, Martin, we have looked at different uses and the different industries. For the past year or so, we've had people offering to partner, and Mark Couture has been kind of helping facilitate a lot of that, because people who want to invest in it and grow on the reservation, of course, they feel more comfortable if the tribes were regulating. They want to partner because the tribes have lands. And so, yeah, there's a lot of different uses, and some is kind of lucrative, but it will come down to processing, and we'd have to get really strategic on that. So as far as looking at specific projects, we haven't proceeded with anything because we'd like to know if the council is, how far we're willing to go here. If we're just looking at regulations, or if we want to look at some of these opportunities so we can vet them and bring them in. And so that's kind of where we're at.
Charmel?
Thank you. I guess I'll take a step out and just say I'd like to support moving forward with getting more information about regulatory mechanisms and understanding it and figuring out, like what would that look like. I think that it would be, a good move for the tribe, possibly for an initial step for, moving into this large industry. And I think that if we are going to go forward with any type of production or other aspects of it, it would be good to have our regulatory base established. And so I'd prefer for us to be the regulatory body on the reservation. Thank you.
Do we have a consensus to move forward? Yes. Okay. Very good. Got your marching order, Shane.
All right. Well, we'll start moving forward with the regulatory aspect of this and start piecing that together for the council. And we'll continue to include Velda just so she knows the landscape of what we're doing in relation to any of the economic work that she might be doing with all of you. So it sounds like there's still some discussions to be had on that economic side of things. So we'll continue to include Velda in our discussions as we move forward, so she knows what legal is doing on the regulatory side.
Yeah, I'm really interested to hear what those other tribes you mentioned are doing as well, the Montana tribes, so cool. All right, Shane, you're the hero. You got us out of here earlier than expected.
I told Dan I would include him and Mike in the hero column for the day. So, all right. Well, thank you all, and you have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks.
Thanks, Council.
Madam Chair, so when were we scheduled to meet with the, meet about the ARP?
Rick was going to look into that. Rick was going to look into that, the ARP
Priority plan
discussion.
discussion?
Did everybody fill out their form?
Madam Chair, I think we have two completed forms as of this morning. Zach had sent out an email. So I think if we were going to continue that conversation, there would need to be quite a bit of homework done to make it a fruitful conversation. It sounds like there's potentially some urgency around the what would I call it? Some version of emergency assistance or assistance to individuals. I can say if it wasn't clear, that wasn't the highest priority on everybody's. It was on, I think, 8 of the 10 council members that we went through that discussion last week. But I've asked Zach and Ruth and Katie to put together some options for what that could look like. That if there's an urgency to that piece of the discussion, we might be able to address that by providing information even via email. All of these programs are going to take some time to put out. I think lesson learned from the first round last time is it's never a long enough period of time to get prepped for a huge influx. So I think our recommendation, if council wants to do something like that, would be let's find a home for it that isn't a temporary one, because this is a 3-year, potentially a 3-year program. And I've asked them to put some thought into where it could be housed as well.
I haven't completed my form. It's in my box. So I'll do that after council's over. Martin?
I guess this would be more of a request for everyone to do their homework, and hopefully we could schedule it for Tuesday. If Thursday seems a little quick turnaround for everyone, so.
So you said you have 2 forms out of 10?
That's correct, Madam Chair. There might be others that have been received today, but I'd also offer if anybody wants to just, Zach's door's open, and he said he's happy to just have folks stop in and fill it out on his screen. But in the meantime, we are prepping the sort of parameters for what a couple different options for relief payments to individuals, households could look like. And we'll definitely provide an update on that tomorrow.
Okay, and just one last point of clarification. So our second tranche, the portal hasn't been opened yet, which is the employment data certification. And that because they're having trouble getting all the tribes to respond to the enrollment certification. So, you know, that was my hesitancy in doing anything right away, was just because we don't know what our total amount is, but that's just me.
Yeah, and one of the options that we're bringing forth is kind of a dire need type of program that would have loose but applicable to the regs around this guidance that that we could not have to basically determine the whole amount. We can get the program in place and then sort of make it available. And we can go retroactive for part of this too. You know, for folks that are in need right now, we can at least make them whole to some degree going backwards.
Okay. So do your homework, me included.
Make the motion to adjourn, Madam Chair.
Motion by Charmel to adjourn. We are adjourned.
And the beauty of